There's a personality trait that I've had for as long as I can remember, and for years I thought it was one of my biggest problems. But eventually I realized that the problem wasn't the trait itself, it was where I was aiming it. So I've always had what you could call an obsessive or addictive personality, but I prefer to view it as an intensity that just doesn't switch off. In other words, when something grabs my attention, it really grabs it. I tend to go all in, which means that balance never comes naturally to me. And for a long time, that didn't feel like a strength at all. Instead, it felt like something that was constantly getting in my way. Because when that kind of intensity isn't directed properly, it doesn't disappear. It just attaches itself to whatever's easiest. And for me, that often looked like distractions, escapism, gaming, alcohol, basically anything that gave me a feeling of progress without actually moving my life forward. And I remember one specific moment very clearly. Years ago, when my DJ career wasn't progressing in the way I wanted it to, I was spending hours every day playing FIFA on my Xbox. And one night, after finishing a session, it suddenly hit me. I'd won everything there was to win in the game, but my real life hadn't improved whatsoever. And I remember thinking, what the hell am I doing? Why am I pouring all this time and energy into something that isn't improving my real life at all? That's when something clicked, and I realized that it wasn't that I lacked discipline, it was that I was directing my intensity into the wrong things. And I thought to myself, if I could spend that much time mastering a game, what would happen if I aimed that same intensity at my DJ career instead? So I immediately got rid of the console, not because gaming's bad, but because I just didn't trust myself to keep it around. And then I did something slightly strange. I started treating my DJ career like a game. Every gig became a level to complete. Every good crowd reaction became points scored. Every mix I made, every crate I organized, every skill that I refined, that became progression. If a set went well, it felt like I completed a level. And if it didn't, I analysed what went wrong in the same way a gamer reflects on a loss before trying again. Because in gaming, losing isn't failure, it's feedback. And once I reframed things that way, everything changed. The obsessive part of my personality didn't disappear, it just finally had somewhere useful to go. But here's the deeper part I didn't understand back then. That same intensity, when it isn't directed constructively, doesn't just vanish, it turns inward. And that's when it can become things like procrastination, self sabotage, anger, or emotional blow ups, because intensity without direction can eventually become destructive. And unfortunately, it's taken me a long time to realize that a lot of the struggles I've had in my life weren't random, they were the result of misdirected energy. And that's when I started realizing that traits like this aren't good or bad, they're neutral. But what matters is whether you're aware of them or whether they're running you in the background without you noticing. Because once you start to become aware of a trait like this, it stops being a liability and it starts becoming something you can actually work with. Essentially, what I'm saying is the same focus that can trap people in destructive cycles can also build mastery, and the same obsession that destroys momentum can also create it. But it all depends on where that energy is aimed. And this doesn't just apply to careers, it applies to anything that matters to you. So for me, understanding all this has been part of a much bigger process of understanding my anger, my reactions, and how often I've got in my own way. And none of these things existed in isolation. It was all the same energy, just misdirected. And even with this channel, I procrastinated for well over a year before starting this. And looking back now, I can see that the same intensity that delayed it is also the thing that eventually pushed me to create it. So I'm not saying I've mastered this because I still struggle with my own tendencies sometimes, but at least I can now see them. And that awareness does make them easier to manage. Because sometimes the goal isn't to fix who you are, it's simply to understand your nature and learn how to aim it strategically. So if you see yourself in any of this, then maybe what you think is your weakness is actually your strength, just waiting to be used consciously. So, if any of this resonated with you, please feel free to leave a comment below. I'm Andy Gates, and this is Between Worlds. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.